Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading, a general looking for the lesson reading for the sign of Leo, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of December. I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss here for you today. Before we get started, I'd like to remind you that the 6-month overviews that I did for each of the signs running from January to June 2023 are now available. That's the first link in the description box. They're running to between 3 and 4 hours or thereabouts, so they're quite thorough. The second link in the description box is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. There you can get access to all of the extended for no extra cost, or the extended content for no extra cost, and you can also come and hang out with a bunch of like-minded and frankly awesome people, because they all are. Very, very much. So if that sounds like your bag, do feel free to check it out. But let's get on with this. Now, I did these readings kind of solidly for about 2 years every month, and I mothballed them back in the summer to give myself a little bit more time to myself. Decided to bring them back as a Christmas present to you. Whether they come back in January or not, I haven't yet decided. Depends very much on my time management between now and then, to be honest. But they're here for now. And the best way to describe these readings is kind of like an exercise in perspective. I think that there is wisdom or a lesson contained within every experience and interaction that we have, if we are open to seeing it. And too often we're not, because we get bogged down with minutiae of day-to-day life, you know, the drama and the drudgery and all that kind of thing. And sometimes that shit can get really, really hard. And as a way of navigating through, I have, in my own personal practice, found it a useful thing to look up every now and again and see what this energy is trying to teach me that I find myself in, right? So it could be that I'm being shown something about myself, getting a bit deeper insight into who I am. It could be that I'm being shown, you know, a situation that is trying to close out in my life, or something that I should be embracing and I'm not. We won't know until the cards hit the table. So the way that it's going to work is that I'll pull 3 cards for your current energy, and we'll see where you are right now, and then we'll pull 3 cards to see why you are in that energy in the first place. And it could be any one of a number of the reasons that I've already mentioned, or it could be something else entirely, or it could be all of the above, right? It just depends. And we'll close out with 3 cards of advice. So now that that's out of the way, tell me where Leo is right now, please. What's going on with Leo? We have the 6 of Swords. Interesting. Okay, well that one jumped big time. We have the 2 of Wands, and let's get one more. And we have the Death card. Yeah, so even before the Death card came out, let me just flip that around so you can see what I'm looking at. Even before the Death card came out, there was a sense that you're on the precipice of great change at the moment, and there's a wee bit of impatience, Leo, because you kind of want to be there already. But notice we've got a kind of running before you can walk kind of energy going on. We've got Mercury retrograde coming up at the end of this month, and that is an important time for reflection and kind of coming back on yourself and making sure that you have tied up loose ends. You know, don't wish time away, and certainly don't try and run before you can walk. There are a lot of things that need to be put in place before you get to the point where you can fully 6 of Swords it, you know, and leave stuff behind and go towards whatever it is that you're that I feel on a very, very deep level you are hankering for at this time. You know, we've got the 2 of Wands here. There are a lot of decisions that need to be made, and you know, I've been talking extensively about the crossroads energy of the 2 of Wands in the main December readings, actually. And particularly this notion that when we talk about a crossroads, you know, we think about this pretty stark T-junction where, you know, we've been on this road for some time and then we come to a crossroads, and there, you know, it's a binary. We go that way or we go that way, and they both represent the kind of the extremes of the possibilities. But for me, the 2 of Wands in this last month or so has been more about highlighting the tiny decisions that you make every day, 100 times a day, the cumulative effect of which takes you fucking like all over the shop compared to just like this way or this way. You know, there's a whole world of experience between this and this, and it doesn't always have to be about the extremes. So what I'm being pushed to tell you is that it is quite likely that what it is that you are planning is not going to work out the way that you are anticipating, and that's okay, because at the moment you seem to be looking at the binary. It's either this thing or this thing. It's this thing that I want or it's nothing. It's this thing or death. You know, that kind of Leo drama that we have about things, right? And the reality is that there's actually a lot more to this. You know, think about it like a tree, like the branches of a tree. Well, you've got the trunk, and then you've got the point where the branches start to head off. But there's all the other branches, and they're moving in different times, you know, and different areas of space almost. Don't focus too much on what you think the outcome should be. And we've talked about this a lot, right? Not clinging to outcomes, but being present for the journey. And being present for those little decisions that need to be made 100 times a day. They dictate whether you have a good day or a bad day. They dictate whether you put on half a kilo by the end of the day because of what you've eaten, or it doesn't, you know. Whether you've exercised enough, you know, over the course of the day. Maybe you park the car a little bit further away from where you need to go so you can walk that little bit. I'm using these silly examples, but the cumulative of all of these little changes can make something really quite dramatic. And this is where the death card comes in. I mean, not only is it auguring this huge transformation or shift that is coming up for you, and frankly is coming up for everybody in 2023. The only sign that I did not see absolutely assaulted by the tower was Sagittarius, actually. And they seem to have got into somewhat of a flow. But for the rest of us, it's all about this dramatic levelling up and doing it pretty swiftly. I mean, what I saw happening over 6 months was astonishing. And 3 years ago, I would have said that most people were not capable of that kind of levelling up in that smaller time frame. But the last few years have been preparing us for this, and been preparing you for this, Leo. So you know that there's a change on the horizon, and you know that everything's about to change. Like I said, there is a slight impatience for it, but at the same time, if you can kind of take your time with this, if you can make sure that every step that you are taking is a measured one, and you are not taking action for action's sake, but instead being mindful of the small decisions, the little choices that you make every day, that you'll get much further in the long run, I think. Now, let's have a look and see why you are in this energy in the first place. Why is Leo of this frame of mind right now? Ace of Wands, well, for sure. We have the Ten of Swords. I like that Ten of Swords, it's wonderful. Oh, and that one skittered out. Right, Two of Swords. You're in this energy at the moment because the worst thing that you could do would be to just go off, Leo. Right? Although it's quite tempting to do that, the smaller steps are more beneficial to you at this point. And more than that, it is being mindful of everything that you have learned, right? The Ten of Swords, if it turned up being the other Ten of Swords, could have been symbolic of the potential for you to trip up, right? You're absolutely catapulting yourself towards some sort of disappointment, some sort of, awful Ten of Swords situation. But the version of Ten of Swords that's turned up here is one that is much more associated with wisdom. It's about leaning into what you know, what you have learned, and what you continue to learn. Like, don't be too quick to initiate anything, right? Things have got to be right rather than now, if that makes sense, right? And it's worth hanging out a little bit longer for the thing that you actually want than settling, I guess that's what I'm saying, than settling at this point. Because if there's one thing that you should know beyond all other things, it is that you don't know everything. Leo. And I think that the last 5 years actually has done a really good job in kind of battering that into us. Anyway, if your experience has been anything like mine, you don't know everything. There is always more information to come to light. And when it's time to move, when it's right, you want it to have come off the back of all of that work that you've done in the background, right? It's not about just settling. It's not about doing something for the sake of moving. It's making sure that it is perfect, because that is the transformation. It's actually the thing in you. I think Leos have learned to be patient over the last wee while in a way that they were not before, and possibly were incapable of before. There are many twists and turns ahead. And if your default position can be, I understand that I know nothing, right? And I'm going to wait for things to make sense, and I'm going to just potter along and do the things that I need to do, preparing the ground for whatever I'm planting next year, then that's the best thing. Because it could be that you just plant whatever it is, right? You take this Ace of Wands and you stick it in the ground and you go, right, I'm going to grow this beautiful tree. It'll be fine. Don't need to do anything about it. But over the course of the next few months, because what we're talking about is your medium-term future here, Leo. And I don't know how good Leos have been traditionally about thinking more than the short term ahead. Like, probably not as good as we could have been, right? This is definitely a medium-term consideration. In the short term, everything looks great. Everything looks like it's growing. And then before too long, that little tree that you planted, or that little seed that you planted, right? It's now a little sapling this big, gets absolutely overrun by other plants that are better suited to the environment that they're in. So the nettles and the briars and all the weeds, maybe a bit of grass and stuff. And try as you might, it is difficult to create the space around that new start, around that sapling, to allow it to grow to its full potential. If instead you spend the time watching where the sunlight hits over the course of a day, what is it that might provide a bit of shade? What does your sapling actually need to survive, right? And then digging out a good hole for it and clearing out all of the weeds that are in a good, couple of meter radius of that thing. It's slower, it takes longer, it's probably a little bit frustrating, but you know that this is the way that you get results. You do know that because your past experiences have shown you that. And having put in all of that extra effort, when the unseen things come in, you're in a better position to be able to deal with those than you would have been if you had just barreled ahead and gone on, just gone straight for the initiatory energy. You've got to think at the moment, medium to long term. And if that means hanging off on something that you thought you would be able to do or to get or to achieve in a much shorter time frame, then so be it. Because what we want to concentrate on here is longevity and quality. And if in 9 months' time you have to tear that sapling up because it's basically just fucking withered, then what you've done is wasted that 9 month period, right? I'm just kind of plucking these numbers out of my arse, but you know what I mean, right? All of that time has been wasted. Nothing has actually, in the long run, been achieved. Better to take your time, better to pace yourself, better to put yourself in a position where you can be a little bit more fluid because you've created the space. Can I have some cards of advice for Leo, please? Thank you. We have the Page of Pentacles in the reverse. We've got the Ace of Pentacles. Oh, shit. And the Ace of Cups. Look at that, Leo. None of the new stuff is being denied to you at all. In fact, what you are being given is a number of aces, right? There's 3 there. Like 1/3 of the reading here for you is aces. That's huge. And I know that we're kind of looking at this line by line, but I actually quite like, when I'm doing bigger spreads, I actually quite like a 9 position spread because it shows you one card in the middle that's the most important. And for you, the most important is making sure that you are tying up the loose ends in the best way that you possibly can, but you are also utilizing the experience that has been so hard won by you. Don't throw it all out because you start chasing new things, right? The new things are here and the new things aren't going anywhere. But the new things are actually slower moving than you want to go at this time, right? The Ace of Swords is the fastest, definitely followed by the Ace of Wands, right? No question about that. And then right at the other end of the spectrum, we have the Ace of Pentacles and we have the Ace of Cups. Now, Ace of Swords and the Ace of Wands work really nicely together. Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Cups work really nicely together because of the elemental dignity of those, right? They support each other. This is about slowing down and making sure everything is done properly. It is boring. It is laborious. It's probably the last thing that you fucking want. But attention to detail at this point, Leo, will see you soar later on, right? It absolutely take off. Page of Pentacles, again, another initiatory energy, but see how it is this way round, right? And it's touching this Ace of Wands. This is about taking something that you already have and taking it off in a new direction, right? Here's your idea and what you consider to be valuable, and it's sitting right on top of the Ace of Wands there, but it's in the reverse. The message here is don't go charging ahead. Wait, step back, observe, prepare, pay attention to detail, do all the laborious shit. And it is laborious shit, Leo, like loads of it. Because you've got your eye on a medium to long term goal here and you want to actually achieve it. You know, it can be something really, really big. And if it is something really, really big, then it's going to need a corresponding amount of energy to pull it off. Consider a tree. When you see a tree and it's very beautiful and it's some fucking, tree roots and trunk and branches and all that kind of thing, and it's got a very distinct shape and it's very beautiful, but did you know that its root system roughly corresponds in size to what you see above ground? Now, something that grows really fast like that isn't going to have time to create that root structure in there, or something that's planted really fast without care and attention to its placement is going to grow so far, and it's only going to have its roots like this far under the ground before everything comes in to try and munch it, right? To try and take its space, try and squeeze it out of the ecosystem, because it's taking up nutrients and it's taking up space. With that time and care and effort that applies to you as much as your circumstances, you can plant something and take care for it and nurture it in a way that will have it reach its full height and achieve exactly what you want it to achieve. Whether it's an apple tree and you want beautiful apples, any kind of fruit tree at all, or maybe you want it for shade, maybe you want it for building a tree house in, right? It's got a purpose. There's something that you want this to grow into, and if it stops growing it here, it's no fucking good to you, and it will stop growing there if you rush this. So don't be rushed into anything, don't be pressured into everything. If anything, err on the side of caution, and if you think that you're going at the right speed, maybe slow down anyway. If you've got a sense that maybe you might be going a little bit too fast, then definitely slam the anchors on, as my partner would say. Put the brakes on and slow this whole process down, because you want to do it right first time. I would go as far as to say that if you don't get it right first time, your likelihood of success drops quite dramatically. I don't know where that's coming from, but that's it, right? You've got one chance at this. You have to do it right. Now, what this refers to is going to be very, very different for each of you. For some of you, it could be a relationship. For some of you, it could be a move, could be a business creation. Maybe it's even, if you might be thinking about having kids or something like that. I can see how it applies right across the board, though. And the advice is the same. Do not rush. Do not be rushed. Do not allow yourself to be rushed. And keep that medium to long-term goal right there. because that's how you're going to achieve success. Oh, very interesting. Right, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.